Hello buddy, welcome back. I'm the Strategy Professor, and today we're going to be looking at our 7.20 support tier list. So I already did a video covering the patch notes a couple of days ago, and now I'm going to do just the tier list portion. So if you haven't seen the patch notes, be sure to go check it out. It'll have some timestamps. It'll have the same document on it. Do I have time to go watch it? There wasn't that much eventful in this patch itself. But there have been quite a few meta changes, which I'm going to talk about as we go through the tier list here, over the last few patches due to the changes that they have made. So the only real notable changes were they buffed Ornn quite a bit. I'm not entirely sure. I don't think he's going to be really that strong, but they have buffed him a lot. Jax is another one who has been indirectly buffed by the changes to Sterix. And Tahm got a nice little buff too. So Eve's not really going to matter. People have been playing her. She's bad right now. She definitely needs some help. And that's pretty much the major changes. Ornn got some buffs. He's viable, but he's still not going to be that great. Tahm is still going to be a niche counter pick to high CC picks. You're not seeing that a lot these days. People aren't playing things like Ashe or Thresh as much as they used to. But he is still a pretty good counter to those. And then Sterix is one of the most meaningful changes. I think that helps anyone that either wants to use Trinity Force or wants to use blanking out on it. But anyways, it'll help things like Renekton, Hecarim, Irelia, Jormun's Fist, Tiamat. Yeah, Tiamat users, Titanic Hydra. That's what I was thinking of. So Titanic users like Jax with Tiamat, because Jormun's Fist is going to give extra HP on the buy, so it'll have a much smoother power curve. And so this is going to help Jax a lot because he uses both Trinity and Titanic Hydra most of the time. And so Sterix would be an excellent third item for Jax potentially. So people aren't going to be rushing this item. It's not going to be great all the time, but I think it is going to be good on Irelia, and I think it's going to be good on Jax primarily. Now, other changes, we got a coin nerf and a spell thieves. This does matter, but not a ton yet. Sort of, kind of, it does matter. It's going to hurt Sona the most because Sona still wants coin. But it hurts her mana quite a lot. Nami, on the other hand, is fine getting spell thieves. That helps her out with her early aggression. Janna's still going to want to go coin. Soraka's still going to want to go coin. Neither one of them has huge mana problems, so it's not a big deal. This is going to squeeze Sona the most. And we'll talk about Sona in a little bit. She did follow a few slots because of this and other reasons. But and then all of the AP champions, the Zyra, the Brand, all of that, they're going to want to switch back to spell thieves from coin. It was already about 50-50 depending on what was going on, but I think it's decidedly spell thieves now because it's getting about an extra 110 gold off the initial buy, and it's just going to have better mana regen than Ancient Coin will. The reason why you could build coin on someone like Zyra, even though it seems really goofy before, is because it had such heavy mana regen on the blue coins that you were actually dealing more damage because you could cast more spells than you were with spell thieves with the extra AP and the on-hit damage. So that's just how powerful that mana regen was. But they nerfed it from 15% to 10% a few patches ago, and now they've nerfed it from 10 to 6% of your missing mana. So that's quite a huge hit to mana regen. So anyways, and so the champions that are good in each role, I've got J4, Cho, Jax, Fiora, and Renekton top. I think Renekton's going to gain quite a lot from the changes, as is Jax, particularly the changes that will affect Titanic and its power curve, and Trinity Force indirectly through the Sterix buy as a third item. Jungle's basically going to be the same. I think that Ezreal is really strong. He's the best early game jungler. Rammus is also pretty good, and then just the super tanks of J4, Sejuani, and Malachi. Sho'Gath probably deserves to be in there somewhere too. Cho might even be as high as maybe number 3. I still think that Jarvan's the best, but Cho is definitely a menace. Mid lane, not too many changes. Azir's really good. As I pointed out, I thought he'd be a top 5. A lot of other commentators weren't thinking he was going to be that good, but he is. He's really good right now. I still like Kassadin and Talia a little bit more, but I think Azir's definitely up there. Syndra's always viable, strong, and then Galio and LeBlanc. LeBlanc is the best if you're really good with LeBlanc, but there aren't that many great LeBlanc players out there, so I have her down a bit lower, but she's sort of a special case. And then as far as ADs go, I think Draven's number one. Early game punishment is back. And we'll talk about that here in just a second in terms of how the meta is shifting. But I think early game is becoming back into style, and that's why I think Draven and Kate are going to be the strongest. They're very good at bullying out Twitch and Zyra. Tristana's still all right, but she just takes a while to get fired up. And then Callista, if you're really good with Callista, then she can take over games. But she has to do it very early, and she's going to have a hard time with assassins, things that can burst her down, which is becoming a lot more popular right now. So that's why I have her as kind of the bonus pick there, the one that's not that great all the time, but is great sometimes. So I know she's being pick banned all the time in Worlds, but you got to remember they're playing in 7.18, and it's organized play where assassins just aren't going to be played that much most of the time. Okay, so what's going on with the meta really quick? I could have made an entire extra section here about this, but I'll just talk about it really quickly. Basically, I think it's just tank exhaustion. I think people are just tired of playing tanks. They've been good for a while now, and they just aren't that sexy, right? You're not going to get a huge stat line. You're not going to get huge scores. You're just going to get wins, and who cares about that, right? But seriously, I think that people are just getting tired of playing tanks, and so they're just playing other stuff. Even if it's not optimal, they're still playing it. So you're not seeing as many people playing things like Jarvan, although I think he's still worth a ban. Sejuani and Cho'Gath and Maokai are kind of the huge menaces right now. But people just aren't playing them. Like, there have been so many games that I've played in the last few days where Sejuani was either was not picked by either side, and she wasn't banned a lot either. So I'm just going to show you kind of my history. I had a really rough night tonight, but I had been doing very well before that, pretty consistently. This was viewer night, so it was just a bunch of normals. But like my last 2 out of my 3 ranked days have been doing really well. So right there, and then right here, and then tonight was kind of backpedaling a little bit, but hopefully we can get our momentum again. But as you'll see, like, people just are not playing the tanks a lot. At least my team is not playing tanks a lot, and a lot of teams aren't. So if we look here, there's no tank on my team really, and on their team they did have Cho, and that Cho was a real menace and won them the game. But this game, no tanks. They're playing Riven, Wukong, Maokai, and we're playing Heimerdinger, Ezreal, Corki. So no tanks, other than like me, if you count the support. I don't really count support tanks as real tanks because they're not. There's not the same level of like unstoppable force that the jungle and the top lane tanks are. This one we did have a Malphite who's really iffy. I lose with Malphite so much. But they didn't have a tank. I mean, they had Kled, Kha'Zix, Yasuo, and Vayne. And this is becoming much more prominent. People are just picking these all AD comps. I mean, look, this is AD jungler, AD top as well. It's just one AP source. So everybody's picking AD, and, you know, I don't get it because lethality's not that great right now. But everyone's just picking it. They just like those champions. Those champions, I guess they're just fun to play. I don't know. But yeah, this one, we had the tank with Dire King. I guess that's that same guy. Maybe he's a Malphite one trick. And they had the Sejuani. So there was like one tank in this one. They had Rammus. We didn't really have a tank. I mean, unless you count Renekton, but Renekton almost never builds tank items. Let me see. This Renekton probably was not building tanky. No. Edge of Night Renekton with Titanic Hydra. Titanic Hydra is for real. Like, that item is very, very good right now on a lot of people. I mean, he did eventually get Gargoyle Stoneplate, but he's not a true tank of sorts, right? And that's just a common theme that you'll see throughout a lot of my match histories, and if you go through your match histories, you'll probably see that too, is people just are not playing tanks as much. Like, that team has no tanks right there. Our team this game, we did have Gragas, but they had no tanks on their team. So what does this mean? How does this affect the meta that everyone's picking these very high burst damage AD champions? I mean, look at this one. You got Pantheon, Rek'Sai, Zed, Tristana. So this is not just like 1 or 2 games. This is happening all the time. We've got Graves, Yasuo, Draven here. People were picking these AD champions, top and middle, and in the jungle as well. That Kane's super popular right now. And this is having a major impact on the meta. So I think that it's tank fatigue where people don't want to play it. And I think also a lot of tank items have been nerfed and people just might think they're not as good. They aren't as good technically as they used to be because we've had so many nerfs. You've had nerfs to Cinderhulk. You've had nerfs to Bramblefest. Gargoyle Stoneplate, Knight's Vow, pretty much every tank item except for Warmogs, which is ridiculously overpowered right now. If you just go Cinderhulk Warmogs on Cho'Gath or Sejuani, it's absolutely ridiculous. But tanks have been nerfed, but they're still the best. So just for the record, people still should be playing tanks, but they're not. So how do we adjust? How does that inform the tier list? That's the biggest sort of meta change. Well, Janna is still going to be at the top. Now, let me pull her up here, because she has had a lot of nerfs to her. But the thing is, Ardent Sensor is still overpowered, and she's still the best Ardent Sensor user. Now, what's unique about Janna is she's very good at peeling, and she's a relatively safe pick in the mid to late game. Now, early game, she's dangerous, so they have clearly defined that she's going to be bad early game. So that's something that you're just going to have to deal with as Janna. You know, if you're against something like a Zyra or a Lulu or, you know, just anything, a Sona, anything that's going to be really aggressive and pokey early on, then that can be problematic. But otherwise, her kit is still relatively intact. So she still has a Tornado to disrupt engage. She still gets a lot of extra movement speed. Her shield is less, but it's still pretty good. It's still pretty solid, and it still has a 0.7 AP ratio on it, so that's really strong. And then her ultimate is still the same, like, insane healing that it used to be. So she has been nerfed quite a lot. She does have an auto attack now, so you actually can auto attack in fights. So she has been nerfed quite a bit, but she's still the best, and the reason is she's really good with hyperscaling AD carries, which is what everybody respectable is playing right now. Those people who don't want to lose elo and play Ashe. You know, the people who want to play things like Twitch, like Caitlyn, Tristana, Draven, all that stuff. She's very, very good with them. She actually has decent wave clear now, so, you know, it is an option to push them into towers so that you don't get harassed out. Because now you can full charge this Tornado and just throw it at the wave, and it'll do quite a bit of damage. So 105 level 1 to every single minion with no diminishing returns. For only 60 mana. So as part of this rework, or not rework, but I guess readjustment of her stuff, they dropped the price from 90 mana to 60 mana. So level 1 Tornado is actually pretty cheap. I don't know why level 5 Tornado is 140. That's kind of absurd considering it. I mean, what? But you don't level it up until the end of the game anyway, so... You actually, like, literally, you may not even want to level it up. Like, it might cost you too much mana because you don't get any cooldown reduction, and the extra damage is minimal because you usually just fast cast it. So this might be a case where you, like, literally, you would not even want to level up this ability. That's how bad it is to level up. Like, you level up 1 point, but maybe after that, you don't even level it up because it's going to be 140 mana, like 80 extra mana for most of the time, like 100 extra damage. I don't know. That's pretty bold to say that, but you certainly don't level it up until you level everything else. That doesn't matter too much. But yeah, she still has a great shield. She still has great disengage. She still has a great way to deal with assassins, and she still scales super well with most AD carries. And she's an excellent Ardent Sensor user. So I think she still is number 1. I had played, you know, when she first came out, I thought she was going to be nerfed to the dirt. I played her, had a bad game. But then I've played her since then, and she's really, really strong. Now, it's a problem if they have the high scaling AD carry. So if you have Ashe, or you have Lucian, and they have Kog'Maw, or they have Twitch. But that's pretty rare. It's pretty rare these days. Most of the time, both sides have a hyperscaling AD carry. So she's fine. As long as you have a respectable AD carry. Now, Rakan fell a little bit. I've still got him at number 2. But he might need to go 1 slot lower and put Nami at number 2. We'll talk about Nami here in a second. I know we haven't seen her a lot. I know people will be like, what? Why is Nami so high all of a sudden? I'm going to explain it. But the thing about Rakan, he has excellent engage, obviously. He's a pretty good Ardent Sensor user. He can get bullied out early, though. He really doesn't offer that much early on until he gets to level 6. His Q is kind of hard to hit. It's on a low cooldown. It doesn't do much damage. It does heal you. He has virtually no wave clear unless you use your W to wave clear after a kill or something. So he really can't do anything in lane that much. Now his engage is good, but there are a lot of things that are really good against Rakan that are becoming more popular. So Morgana's becoming more popular. She's a great counter to Rakan and Blitzcrank and Thresh. So she's pretty good. People are playing Veigar a lot more. I've played against Veigar several times over the last few days, and Veigar is like just a nightmare because once he puts that cage around you, you're dead. A lot of times you don't have any way to get out of the cage because you're dashed through. You have to hit the wall to go through. He's not good into like heavy crowd control. Like Rammus is really popular right now. He's not great in Rammus. He's not great in a Thresh. People aren't playing Thresh that much these days, but he's okay. Like he's decent in a Soraka. So I think he's pretty good, but there are some matchups, like especially against the tanks, where he has a real hard time. So if they have things like Cho'Gath who can silence him when he goes in, that's just lights out. He can get around Jarvan. He can't really do anything to prevent like your AD carry from getting killed by Jarvan though. Galio is still getting picked some. He's really good against him. So Rakan has some bad matchups, but he can still be really good. I know I just said people aren't playing tanks, but if they do for some reason and you pick Rakan, it can be kind of a problem. So he's okay. He doesn't peel that well. He has good initiate. He's still pretty strong. That's why I have him at number 2. And particularly if you have Xayah on your team, obviously he's going to be great with that. So he's still pretty good. Just be aware, like be kind of careful, you know, picking him first or second pick before you see much of the enemy team. Now another thing, people are playing Vayne more, and it's very annoying to try to deal with Vayne as Rakan because she can condemn you backwards when you're trying to dash in, and she can roll away to make it difficult to hit her too. So I don't think Vayne's that great right now. I don't think that change helped her that much, but she is pretty good against Rakan. So, you know, you want to keep that in mind. Also, Lulu's pretty good against Rakan, and she's becoming much more popular. So, and Janna's good against Rakan, and she's still really strong. So, Rakan is good. You just want to be careful when you're picking him. Even though he's number 2, I don't know if I would suggest picking him really early. Okay, Nami. So, Nami rose a lot. So, what happened? Why? The thing about Nami is she doesn't scale as well as other enchanters with Ardent Censer, Redemption, and Athene's Unholy Grail, which is sort of your go-to enchanter package, right? You just go coin, then you get those 3 items, and you just crush everybody, right? With Janna, Sona, Lulu. That's kind of how it would go. But since people are picking a lot more early aggression champions, then you're not getting to that power spike fast enough, and people aren't team fighting enough either. People are playing more split push assassination type of champions, and if you're not grouped for a 5v5, then someone like Sona, who's fallen out of favor, it gets really hard really quick. If you're having to rotate and Kha'Zix jumps out and kills you, or LeBlanc, or Kassadin's everywhere these days, it becomes much more hard to deal with. Or Jax. So you need more power early on right now is kind of the gist of things. And so Sona does give you more power, but she's very squishy as well. And a lot of her power is predicated on her scaling with Redemption, with Ardent Censer, with Athene's Unholy Grail. She needs to get that whole suite of items to where she just becomes this awesome aura bot that just sort of takes over later. But she's still going to be squishy. She doesn't have a lot of crowd control there. And Janna's banned almost every game. Sometimes she's up, but she's banned a lot. And remember, even if she's in a game that she's not nearly as strong early game as she used to be, like because her shield has 18-second cooldown and it shields for a lot less. So she can get bullied out early game. And all of this opens up a space for Nami. So let me go ahead and pull her up here. Let's see. There we go. So it's been a while since I brought out the Nami, but I have been playing her a lot lately, particularly with Draven, whenever I have Draven on my team, and I've been doing very well with her. So the deal with Nami, like I said, she doesn't scale that well with the plus healing and shielding. It's okay, and the reason is she only has one ability that has a heal or a shield on it, and that's her W. And it has okay base healing. 185 is kind of low, though. You know, it's kind of low. It does damage in addition to the heal. Now, if you do heal, damage, heal, then it will be a little bit better. You know, it'll be somewhere around 240 total healing. Excuse me. Thanks for the sub. But what she does have is a lot of early game aggression, because you can just walk up, auto attack somebody, and then just hit them with the wave. It'll do 70 damage to them and heal you for 65. So if they auto attack you back, it's going to heal all that back. So your trade pattern is you just walk up, auto, wave, auto, back up, wait, auto, wave, auto. And you can just harass people starting from level 1. Just go up and just mercilessly just beat them down. Just keep autoing, keep harassing. She's the best early game punishment support right now, I think. Who can also build Ardent Sensor. Now, obviously, can build Ardent first comfortably pretty much all the time. Now, Thresh is great early game aggression, and he can build Ardent if you take Bond of Stone with him, but you're going to be a lot squishier. And Thresh needs to be a bit tankier a lot of times in his kit. But she's almost like a Thresh in the sense that she can be very aggressive early, but she also offers peel later, and she's just a little bit better with Ardent Sensor than he does. First of all, because she has a heal and a shield that gets buffed by it, but then also because it can hit multiple targets and you don't have to take Bond of Stone. She can take Wind Speakers. So she's not going to scale as well with the entire support package if you have the luxury of getting that. So, you know, if you can get Ardent Sensor, Redemption, Athene's Unholy Grail, she's still good with it, but she's not going to be as good as someone like Sona, Soraka, Janna, stuff like that. But she doesn't have to get those 3 items to be useful. She has a much more versatile build path, so you can do that if you're ahead and you need it. But you can also go something like a Zeke's if you need armor, or you can go Knight's Vow if you need armor. You can go Locket if you need extra magic resist in that team aura, and you're not sacrificing as much because you're not as dependent on that scaling from plus healing and shielding, because you only have 1 heal and shield. So if you have to, you know, if they have a 6-0 Kha'Zix on the enemy team, or a 6-0 Talon, or something like that, and you're Sona, and you have to stop, like, after Ardent, you have to stop and build a Knight's Vow, that's going to be really bad, because you don't have much defense in your kit anyways, you don't have much crowd control in your kit, and you're missing out on so much of your potential in terms of your scaling. Whereas with Nami, if you have to stop after Ardent and get, you know, Knight's Vow or get Zeke's, you still have a lot of crowd control. It's fine. Like, yeah, you're not going to heal as much with your W, but you still have your Aqua Prison. You still have your Tide Collar to slow people down and have that sticking power. You still have your Tidal Wave to peel people off. So you still have most of your tools in your toolkit. You're not sacrificing nearly as much to get more armor in particular. Armor. That's what you need. And if you look at some of these Nami games, I had to do that in a lot of games. I mean, this one we lost, so maybe that's not the best example. But if you look at some of this itemization here, I was getting Knight's Vow in this game. This one I still got Ardent and kind of the standard build. But now that was a, if you're wondering why Jungle Nami, that was a donation game for a viewer. But if you look down here, I know there were games where I got it. Okay, so this one's where I got Zeke's in this one because they had a super fed 80 carry. It didn't end up mattering too much. But it is something on the table where you can get Locket, you can get armor. This is, I got Knight's Vow, Knight's Vow. So this is something that you can do if they have fed stuff. So for instance, in this game, Nocturne, really hard to avoid it. He was trying to focus me out and kill me. Knight's Vow kept me alive. This one, J4, kept dunking me. Okay, I can get Knight's Vow and maybe survive through it. So it's something that you don't necessarily always want to do, but it gives her the flexibility in a meta that's shifting more towards AD assassins to itemize for some armor while not sacrificing too much of your kit because you're not as reliant on plus healing and shielding. So that's the main reason that Nami's in this, is that she can bully out early, especially in a meta where people aren't getting Door and Shield anymore, where Janna is super popular and she's really bad early game, and where people are picking more early game champions. Now, people are still picking, you know, your Scalers, your Twitch, your Vayne, stuff like that early on. But more people are picking Caitlyn, more people are picking Draven, and she's so good with those early aggression picks. People are picking Jen again. She's pretty good with that. Now, I don't think it's time for Jen to come back. I don't think he's that great yet. He's okay, but I definitely think that Caitlyn and Draven are really good. So she's an excellent complement with them. And she's not even really that bad if you have to pick her. She's pretty good with both Twitch and Vayne because she has a heal. She can get him through lane. She can switch into defense mode if you need to. She has great peel. And this allows them to stick. So this is going to make it difficult for people to get away from Twitch when he's ulting. It's going to let Vayne run him down. So it's just a really good kit. And she's pretty good against assassins in general because she has the heal and she has such long ranges on her spells. So, you know, you can bubble people that are trying to kill you. You can throw it from a very safe distance of 875 away. This effectively has, you know, up to 1450 range. So you can throw this on an enemy and it'll bounce to an ally 725 away, or you can throw it to an ally and it'll bounce around to everybody else. So it has really nice range, and then this has 800 range on it. So you can play pretty far back and position pretty safely and be very effective in fights. And then this has an enormous range, obviously. So you can use this when you're rotating and your AD carry gets caught, just throw this wave at him, and you might just get there in time to save him. So she has a really nice kit. She does scale decently well. She's good with Ardent Sensor. She does scale decently well with the other items like Athene's and Redemption if you need to get that. But you can also, you know, get Locket, get Knight's Vow, get Zeke's, just get some armor under you so you don't get focused out if things start going south. If they get that Fed Talon, Fed Pantheon, Fed whatever AD champion everybody's playing. So that's why I think that she's higher. And I think you're going to start to see a lot more of her. We won't see competitive outside of Worlds for a while, so this is kind of a weird meta where you won't see what the top people are doing unless you're watching other support streams. But I would not be surprised if she gets a lot more popular. Now, she did get a buff a while ago, don't forget, where I think it was the cooldown on her Q, yeah, was reduced 2 seconds. So it didn't matter as much back then because everyone was playing tanks. That's another thing, is she's not as good with tanks as Sona, Janna, and Soraka are because healing is much better when people have really high resistances, really high magic resistant armor, because it increases their effective health. So for example, if you have 100 armor and something's dealing, you know, 300 damage to you, physical damage, then it's only going to do 150 damage. So it's going to take 600 total damage to kill you if you have 100 armor. If you have 200 armor, it's going to take 3 times as much. So if they're trying to kill you, then it's going to take, and you have 300 health, it's going to take 900 damage to kill you with physical. So that's why healing and shield get those resistances as well. So that's why healing and shielding is best on tanks. So that's why Sona was so good for a while, because everybody was picking tanks every single game. Okay? And same thing with Soraka. But now people are moving away from that. They're moving towards the assassins, particularly AD. And so you don't need that as much. Okay, but they reduced the cooldown here. I thought they did something else too. Just a couple of effects. Blah, blah, blah. Yeah, it was just the cooldown reduction on her Q. That's pretty big because that's the last thing that you level. So, you know, it's pretty nice, like extra, basically 14% cooldown reduction on that item. Taking it down 2 seconds from 14. So yeah, I think she's super strong right now. I think she's very aggressive. I think she can be a defensive healer in lane if you need her to be. And I also think she can be one of the best harassment. Now, her weakness are all in. So if you're against something like a Leona who's becoming a bit more popular, a Thresh, a Blitzcrank, all that stuff, she's not going to be that good there. But she is good against immobile tanks like Tahm Kench, like Braum. And she's very good against other enchanters, particularly Lulu. She murders Lulu in lane. And she's really good against Janna too. Sona can kind of hold her own with her. But another thing is she is one of the only enchanters that actually has kill threat in lane, like a lot of kill threat. So if you take Ignite with her and you land a bubble, you do a lot of damage. So you land a bubble, auto, W, auto, put your E on your AD carry, they run in, you know, slow them a lot. They're going to have to flash and they might die anyways. So, you know, she's one of the only people that's an enchanter that also has a 1.5 second stun. Like, Lulu has a polymorph, but they can still kind of scamper away while they're polymorphed. Janna can't really do it that well. Soraka can't do it. And Sona doesn't have anything until she ults. So, you know, Karma has a bind, I guess, if they stay close. Karma's probably about as close as it's going to get to early game aggression who has kill threat. But Karma's not that great right now for a bunch of reasons, which we can talk about here in a little bit. But yeah, so that's Nami. I know that we haven't seen Nami in a while, and people are like, why are you rating her so high? That's why. It's very complicated, but the meta's shifting in her favor of this great combination of kill threat and lane, excellent pressure, and just excellent versatility with items to both help weak laners like Vayne and Twitch. You can also help the other one scale, the hyperscalers, because you can get Ardent Sensor. Then you also have an answer just in case that AD assassin gets fed. She deals with it better than any other enchanter. So I think that positions her extremely highly right now. Now, you know, you may not have her at number 3. You might like Thresh better. Or you might like Sona better. But that's where I would put her. And honestly, I'd probably still pick Rakan over her if I'm like first pick and I don't know anything about the enemy team. But I think she's a great choice. Okay, Thresh is another one. Thresh is a classic, and I think he's coming back for very similar reasons to Nami, in that he's sort of classically one of the best versatile supports in the business, right? He can go aggressive. You can hit hooks. You can go in, flay people, be really aggressive, or you can defend. You can peel. So you can use your flay to knock people back. You can use your ultimate to keep people away. And he has a very versatile build path as well. So typically you'll want to go Relic Shield and, you know, either Eye of the Equinox or Ruby Sightstone, Face the Mountain. But you can also go Ardent. I know that's kind of weird, but if you look at him, you can take Bond of Stone. I have people ask me this all the time. How do you go Ardent on Thresh? You go Bond of Stone, or whatever it's called, Stoneborn Pact. They've changed the name of this mastery so many times. Stoneborn Pact, and how this works is whenever you crowd control someone, it puts a little rune over their head for 4 seconds. Whenever anyone hits that person, they get a heal for a very small amount. It sucks. The heal's not very good. But that heal counts as a heal from you. So that actually triggers Ardent Sensor. So if you ever hit anyone with a hook, and anybody auto-attacks that person for the next 4 seconds, everyone on your team, not just one person, it doesn't consume the rune when they're hit. So everyone on your team. So if you have Ezreal jungle, Lucian middle, and Twitch bot lane, all 3 of those people will get your Ardent Sensor buff if you crowd control someone as Thresh. And that includes a hook, that includes a flay, that includes a getting tagged with your ultimate. So there are 3 different ways to proc it with Thresh. So that is on the table. You don't have to do it every time, and obviously it's going to make you squishy. But he has some okay AP ratios. He's got a 0.5 here, 0.4, and a 1.0 on his ult. So he has some okay AP ratios, so the AP is not completely wasted on him. He likes the move speed, of course. He likes the cooldown reduction. He likes the mana regen. He's kind of a mana hog. Like those hooks get to be pretty expensive. They're 80 a pop. And so, now obviously he doesn't really like the heal plus healing and shielding that much. That's only 355 gold of the item. And the item's already cost efficient at 2,300. If we pull it up here. The item's already pretty cost efficient at 2,300. If you look here. Yeah, it's already like 2,500 gold in value. And then the 20% attack speed and the 20 on hit is 1,000 gold if you buff somebody. And that is at the lowest level. That's at level 1. It's 1,000 gold. So, you know, if you give up the healing and shielding power, it's about 350 gold. So it's still like at 2,100. You're paying 2,100. Or you're paying 2,300 for 2,100 plus of stats. Worth of stats on it. Sorry, it's been really late. I'm just trying to get this out there because I know everyone wants to see this. The tier list video. But look at these bonuses. At the lowest level, it's 500. So that's level 1. So if you just apply it to one other person, you just apply it to your AD carry, it's going to be a 3,100 gold item. And now it also applies to you, the caster and the target. So you get that 1,000 gold buff as well. So now it's a 4,100 gold item. That's taking off. That's just assuming this stat doesn't even exist on the item. Just take it off the item. Who cares? It doesn't matter. It's still an overpowered item. So yeah, Thresh doesn't use that at all except on his lantern. Who cares? It doesn't matter. Like, that's not why you get it. You get it for this. And the other stuff matters. Now, the ability power matters. You don't want to get this on a champion that doesn't have any ability power ratios. Because that's 1,300 gold worth of stats. So that does matter. But, you know, this doesn't matter. Okay? So 4,100 gold worth of stats when you put this on your Caitlyn in lane and you're both just auto-attacking people in fights. So, you know, the cost 2,300 divided by 4,100, or actually, that's the wrong way around. That's 178% effective. That is massively gold effective. Most items in the game, if you start getting to like 130, 150% effectiveness or efficiency, they're really, really good. That right there. Now, if you start talking about this at level 18 with you and one other person, then it goes down to about 5,600. Now it's 243% efficient. Now, what if you have just one other person on your team who could benefit from the on-hit? Right now, everyone's going to be auto-attacking in fights. Keep that in mind. Even if an Orianna just hits somebody, that still works as something, or Syndra. It's still going to give them the on-hit. They're still going to attack faster. But let's say that, okay, well, you don't want to count that. You don't want to count the mages hitting people every now and then. Let's just say you have an Ezreal, or you have a Fiora, or a Lucian, or just one other champion on your team. Starting out level 1, that'd be 5,100 as soon as you get this. And it's probably going to be more than this. Because by the time you get it, it's going to be level, you know, you're probably going to be level 11 or so. So we'll just say it's halfway between. Right? So whatever the average between these are, let me see. Let's just call it 685, just for a nice round number. Okay, so 685, or actually we can just multiply this by 2. That's fine. Okay, 1375. So each time you buff somebody, it's going to be 1375. When you get this. Times 2 plus 21. Okay, 4,800. And then times, what was that? Or plus another 1375. 62. It's a 270% efficient. So if you land a hook on somebody and just you attack them, your AD carry attacks them, and your Ezreal jungle attacks them, it's 270% gold efficient. You know, just if you're wondering, well, what does that really mean? What's 270% gold efficient? Okay, let's put it to you this way. What's the difference here? That's basically like you're getting 4,000 gold in your pocket. And if a kill is worth 300 gold most of the time, that's like you have an extra 13 kills just because you bought Ardent Sensor and you decided to take Stoneborn Pact on Thresh and you hit somebody with a hook or a flay. It's like you just automatically get, like, you know, bordering on 3 pentas in a row. Like, that's how insane that item is. Think about that for a second. It's like you have 13 extra kills when you complete this item in terms of gold efficiency. If you just have 2 people on your team that can benefit from it in a team fight. If it's just one person, you know, you might just have a measly, like, 9 kills worth of gold. That's insane. That is insane. Like, I have people tell me on the channel, well, why do you get that on Thresh? That's silly. Is it? Is it? It's still the best thing you can buy on just about anybody. And Thresh isn't that bad with it because he uses the AP, like I said. He likes the cooldown, he likes the mana regen, he likes the move speed, he likes it all. And he has 3 different ways to proc it. So, it's a good item on Thresh. So you can go Ardent Sensor. You don't have to, though. You can still go a more traditional Thresh if you don't have tanks on your team, which you may not, because remember, like I just said, tanks are kind of falling out of favor. Then you can be that tank. So you can go, you know, Ruby Sightstone, Face of the Mountain, Knight's Vow, Locket. Like, you can be that as big as you can get as a support. You can be that big tank if you need to. But you don't have to be. You can be the big tank, but you can also get Ardent Sensor if you need it. So if you have a Sejuani on your team, for example, you may not need to be the main initiate. So then maybe you could just either rush Ardent Sensor, or maybe you could just go something like Knight's Vow or Zeke's Convergence first, and then go Ardent Sensor. Zeke's Convergence got a really big buff also a couple of patches ago. It was really kind of under the radar because people don't understand what that item does because it has terrible grammar on it. But pretty much, it used to give your AD carry 17.5% extra damage on their auto attacks for 10 seconds on hit, pretty much. And now it's 25 extra damage. So if you look at Zeke's Convergence here. It's 102% gold efficient, so it's kind of like Ardent in that it's already basically efficient by itself. And then you get this bonus. Now you deal up to 400 magic damage as well if you stand close to people. That is difficult to calculate, and you're not always going to be standing close to people with that. But it does give 25% bonus magic damage on hit with your allies' attacks. Now, I don't know if Critical Strike affects that or if it's just your base attack damage. I don't know. I don't know that. I'd have to go digging deep into the Reddit forums to figure that out. But it's still really good. When you pop this on a Twitch, on a Kog'Maw, you know, anyone like that, it's still good. And it has great stats, right? It's got that 60 armor that you desperately need right now in this meta. It's got 250 mana, which is awesome for Thresh because he's such a mana hog. And then it's got the cooldown reductions. This is everything you want in a package. The very, very nice package of stuff that's really offensive. So, you know, you could go, if you go Ardent and Zeke's, they get the extra attack speed, so then they get the extra on hit here. So that's a pretty nice combo. Now, Knight's Vow is the other one that is really common, popular to buy. Now, when you're near your partner, it's 123% efficient. That includes the movement speed, which doesn't usually matter that much, but it's basically an efficient item, but it is cut in half because Thresh is considered ranged. So it's only 6% instead of 12%. So not as great on Thresh as it is on other people, but it is nice. It does help give some mitigation, you know, when that Jarvan's dunking your AD carry, or when you know, Zed's trying to ult your AD carry. It does give you some protection there, and it heals you, so it does keep you up in long fights. If you put it on a heavy damage target, you're still going to get an extra 6% healing, right? Lifesteal and spell vamp. So it's still pretty good. But yeah, Thresh can get all of these. He's very similar to Janna in the fact that he has excellent peel. He can scale decently well with Ardent Sensor, but he doesn't have to do that. He can go Knight's Vow, he can go Locket, he can go Zeke's. Okay, and it's becoming more important to do that because we're rotating back once again to a very high damage burst meta, particularly with ADs. At least that's what I'm seeing in every solo queue game. And I play a lot of solo queue, let me tell you. So I think that's what we're rotating back towards. It's just sexier. People just like that. They just like damage champions. They're tired of tanks. I still think tanks are the best, but that's just how it is. And that's it. I mean, everyone else knows what Thresh does. He's very strong. You can use your Flay to stop a lot of dashes. You can initiate fights with hooks. You can save people with Lantern. You can be aggressive by hooking somebody and then throwing a Lantern on one of your allies, pull them in. So he's one of the fanciest, hardest to play supports in the game, who's very, very strong in virtually any meta. He has great early game aggression. Because of his Flay, it does a lot of on-hit magic damage. So that makes him an excellent choice. And also, coin is not nearly as valuable as it used to be, so Relic Shield, you're not losing out on as much by taking Relic Shield. So Thresh is still a primetime great champion. He's also probably the best disengaged champion if Janna's banned. So if Janna's banned and they're going to be jumping and trying to dive your AD carry with things like Kha'Zix, things like, you know, Rengar. We haven't seen a lot of Rengar back lately, but Kha'Zix is making a splash again. Things like Talon, things like Rammus. He's probably the best champion in the game against Rammus other than Janna. And Rammus is very popular right now. So he's just really good at protecting AD carries. So he's very hard to play, but if you can play him well, I think that he's excellent. So he's the best peel option, and he's just very versatile, similar to Nami. He doesn't have the healing and shielding. He's not going to get people through tough lanes. So if your Twitch, you know, decides not to go Door and Shield against Sona Caitlyn and you pick Thresh, it's going to be a tough lane. So Nami would be better there, but he is good. Now, he's really good against all-ins, too, and that's something that Nami's weak against. So he's very good against things like Leona. What's up?
What?
I know. We'll be done here in a little bit. I'm doing my thing. You said we got to leave at like 9, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Ish.
Okay.
Okay.
20 minutes.
Okay.
So yeah, so that makes him very good against all-ins, which is becoming popular too. So I think that he's a great choice right now. I really do. I've been playing him a lot more. Now, it does take some games. Like, I had like a 30% win rate on Thresh for a while because I didn't play him that much, and he hasn't been great all season, frankly. But I think he's starting to come back. You know, I still only have a 43 right now, but I'm dusting him off. I'm working on him. I think, you know, in recent memory, I've probably been going like 55 or 60%, you know, over the last 20 times that I've played him. So we are rising. So he's very difficult to play correctly, but he's definitely worth it. And he's just a good support to know. Like, Thresh is one of those supports where, you know, virtually every pro player got to Challenger playing Thresh. Almost all of them at some point. He's like the support that you know. You know, if you're trying out for a pro team, they're going to be like, okay, let's see your Thresh. And they're going to play with Summon Solo Queue. Because he's that important. He's the most powerful support of all time. So, I think he's definitely making a comeback. Blitz is another one who's powerful. Now, I really don't like Blitz unless Thresh is banned. I just played some with him tonight. It just feels really bad if your team doesn't follow up. Like, I landed so many good hooks in a Blitz game that I played, and just nobody could kill the person that I hooked. And then if they don't kill him, then you're just worthless. And your cooldown is a really long amount of time. Now, Thresh's cooldown on his hook, remember, it goes down to 12 seconds, but it goes down 3 seconds if you hit somebody. And that's key, because that triggers after cooldown reduction. So it doesn't stack multiplicatively, it stacks additively. So that means if you have, you know, 40% cooldown reduction, I think that takes it down to 8 seconds. Let me see. 7 seconds, roughly. Then you get the 3 seconds on top of that. So then it's only 4 seconds downtime on the hook. Whereas if you compare that to someone like Blitz, Blitz is 16 seconds, no extra reduction on anything. So Thresh is going to have, you know, 3 or 4 seconds on his hook. So you can hook people numerous times in fights. Just hook, 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 hook. As long as you're hitting people, you get rewarded, and you get to just keep chucking them and just keep, like, chain CCing people. Blitz, not so. It's a lot longer cooldown. It costs a lot more mana. Now, yes, it does a lot more damage. That's a lot of damage. And he does have this fist, which is decent. You know, it's decent crowd control, but it's not Flay. He doesn't have Lantern. He doesn't have the crowd control of an ult. So he's basically you just pull him in, knock him up, blow him up. But if you can't blow him up, if your team doesn't follow up, or you just keep hitting tanky targets, or you just can't hit your hooks, he sucks. Like, he's just not going to be good. So I personally think he's a bit too one-dimensional for my taste. If Thresh is up, I would rather play Thresh every time. Now, his hook is easier to hit than Thresh's because it has a larger hitbox and it doesn't have a delay on it. So that's something to consider. And he's a lot easier to play, so that's the main draw. If you're in silver or bronze and you just haven't played a lot of Thresh or Blitz, I would say maybe start with Blitz. Just, he's easier to manage. But, you know, if you're planning for the future, you don't mind losing a lot of games, you know, going under 50% learning Thresh. Maybe it's the end of the season and you're silver 3 and you're just like, you know what, I just don't think I'm going to be able to put the time in to get up to gold. I'm just going to practice for the rest of the season and just get ready for next season. Then maybe go ahead and start putting some time in on Thresh. Or try him out in normals. So, you know, Blitz is good. Blitz can also go Ardent, by the way, because he doesn't have to get in the middle of fights. You pull people out of position, so it's okay if you're a little bit squishier. He obviously has very good AP ratios. He has 100% on this one. He has 100% on his ult. So he has nice ratios, and of course he likes the mana, he likes the speed. The plus healing and shielding he doesn't get, but who cares? It doesn't matter. And he has 2 different ways to trigger it, off his Power Fist and his Q. So he's another person who can go Ardent. That's a little weird, but it actually does give him quite a bit of extra burst damage because he has this 100% on each one. So, and like I said, with Blitzcrank, you shouldn't be sitting in fights for a really long time anyways. So you don't need to be that tanky. And he has innate tankiness with his mana barrier. So I think Ardent's actually pretty good on Blitz, and it's a nice insurance policy. So if you accidentally hook the tank, or you hook an AD carry or something, and they manage to, like, flash out before your team could kill him, then if anybody at least auto attacks him, they're going to get the buff off of Ardent Sensor. So I think he's pretty good. He's a little one-dimensional for my taste. He is very, very good against things like Sona, Soraka, Nami, Rakan. Rakan can usually jump out before he gets blown up, but anything that's squishy, he's the premier all-in champion. So he's got a better all-in than Thresh, higher damage, easier to hit hook. He's just not as versatile in his build. If your team's behind, it feels really bad. Now, Sona has fallen, and this may surprise some people. She still has a really high win rate on op.gg. But I've played a lot of Sona this season, okay? I've got like 150 Sona games. I used to have like a 55, 56%. I can't win with her lately. You know, I'm only 33%, you know, in the last 7 days with her. There's no way this is accurate, though. I've played way more games of League of Legends than this in the last 7 days. I play like 8 to 10 games a day. But anyways, and the problem is, I already talked about Sona when I was talking about Nami. I think Nami is kind of replacing her as the premier early game harassment healer champion. Now, Sona's not going to... she's going to scale better, right? She's going to scale better than Nami does. But the question is, are you going to get to scale? Will you get that chance, right? Is the game going to get closed out too early by full lethality Wukong and Riven, right? Is Wukong going to go like 16-0 or whatever this monkey did this game? 15-7, building full lethality. Is Riven going to go 10-1 before you get your items? You know, and that's just the reality of this day and age, is we're shifting back towards a very aggressive meta. And you just may not have time to lace up as Sona, and they just might hunt you down and kill you. I mean, this is my most recent Sona game. You know, we're facing a 10-1 Kled. We're facing a 9-7 Kassadin. 16-2 Yasuo. Now, we crushed middle, right? We murdered them. They're 1-5. Like, we did very well. Now, Caitlyn got killed. All of this, for the most part, was in the mid game. She just did not know how to position. She just kept getting caught out by Yasuo, you know, just the whole crew here. But in lane, we busted them up. You know, but it didn't matter because we didn't get to do what I wanted to do. I didn't get to build the items that I wanted to build. And tier, I hate this item on Sona. I know everybody gets it. The reason that it's weak, I think, is that you need vision. You need boots. You need to be able to rotate, get vision, and shot call. If you go tier, your vision's going to be really behind. Either your vision's behind or your ardent sensor's behind, or both. So there's just not enough gold for this. I mean, maybe you take Spell Thieves on Sona now. I don't know. I mean, coin is still pretty good, but I don't know. I think the coin nerfs hurt her worse than anybody. And I think this shift towards a more early game aggression hurts her more than anybody. Now, yes, she can go Zeke's if she needs to. She can go Knight's Vow if she needs to. But she doesn't have the CC to back it up, right? She needs the scaling. That's why you pick Sona, is to bully out in lane and then scale really hard with your W to just make it impossible for people to kill you. So she's like a Soraka with just a little bit more CC on her ult and a bit more utility, with her speed up and her ability to take dragons and barons really quickly with her Q, and her ability to put Ardent Sensor on like 5 people. That's one of the major things, is anyone that gets touched by her W shield, so that little circle around you, not just the heal, but the shield as well, will trigger Ardent. And so you can put Ardent on your whole team with her W, and that's what makes her really strong. But she's still really good. I just think it's dangerous to pick her early because people are picking this stuff now. This, you know, the Kha'Zix, the Ribbons, all of that, they're becoming a lot more popular. So I just think she's a much more dangerous pick, and I think we're rotating into a much more aggressive meta right now. So, and it's nothing in particular. Like I said, it's been a couple of nerfs here and there over the course of 3 or 4 patches to tanks. But this patch, there wasn't anything that looked like it would suggest a much tougher meta. Like, they didn't increase the AD on lethality items. They didn't, like, you know, nerf armor items again or anything like that. It's just people are moving towards that. That's what they want to play. It's the end of the season. They feel like they have to hard carry stuff, and they think you can't do it as tanks. You can. But that's just how people feel, and that's what they're doing, and that's what I'm noticing. And like I said, it's not just a one-off game. It's like all week. I'd say about a week to a week and a half or so, that's been the shift. Because remember, I play a lot of games. You know, I have like 2,500 games or something this, maybe not that much. I have like 2,000 games this season. And that's just what I'm seeing a lot. Now, it might only be at Platinum, but, you know, I suspect that's happening in a lot of ELOs. Okay, Morgana, still really strong. Kind of fading a little bit also. She does have the bind, but that spell shield doesn't block any physical damage. And that's the big problem. Is historically, she's not great in lethality metas, and that's kind of what we're going back to. You know, she's not great into Kha'Zix, she's not great into Kayn, who is super popular right now. She's not great in a Riven. She's not great in a Yasuo, Fiora, Renekton, Jax. She doesn't do anything against these champions. Yeah, she can bind him. Yeah, she can ult him. But that spell shield is not going to stop Jax from obliterating your backline. And if they get Quicksilver Sash or their Enchanter support gets Mikhail's, then they can undo your bind. And that's really going to make you a lot weaker. So, you know, I feel like she's still good, but I feel like she's much more of a counter pick, right? Like, you need to pick her against Thresh, Blitz, Rakan, all of those champions she's going to be much better against. So, she's okay. She's still pretty good. She can run Ardent Sensor pretty well. She can run Stoneborn Ardent, so when you hit people with your Q, you know, everyone gets the Ardent buff on them. That's pretty good. Or you can run Wind Speakers if you want, although I think Stoneborn Ardent's probably better. She does have the option of going Zeke. She's pretty good with Zeke. She likes the armor because she has to stay in close to get her ultimate to stick for the stun. So, you know, she can itemize defensively, kind of like Nami, because she only has one shield spell, and she has a lot of crowd control in her kit. So, similar to Nami, she can itemize defensive stuff. Night's Vow, Zeke's, Locket. That's all on the table if you need it to be. But, unlike Nami, she does not have the early game aggression, right? If she lands binds, yeah, you can land binds and go for Ignite or whatever and, you know, be aggressive early. But Nami's is a point click. You just walk up in the middle of a minion wave if you want to, hit them with the W, auto-attack them, and run back, and it heals you. It damages them and heals you. And there's nothing they can do about that. The only way they can do anything about that is if they hit you with some kind of all-in, like a brand stun, a thresh hook, whatever. But because you can do Nami stuff in the middle of a minion wave, because it's point click, and because it doesn't matter if you take a couple of minion hits when you do it, because you're going to get that self-heal anyways, that makes her very difficult to deal with, even with someone like Morgana. So I think she's okay, but I would only pick her as a counter pick if you need peel. And most of the time, I would probably rather just run something like Thresh. Now, you know, places you would pick her, like I said, Thresh, Leona, very good against Leona, very good against, like, point-click crowd control, like Nautilus. Maybe Sejuani's not point-click, but good against Sejuani. So just, if they have Vi, excellent against Vi. So she is one of the people that's pretty good. I think that Tahm Kench is probably better than her at doing that right now, which we'll talk about here in a second, but she's okay. Soraka, very similar to Sona. I consider it almost the same thing. She doesn't have as much early game pressure as Sona does. She can hit people with Qs and auto attack. I mean, that's all good. But she's very susceptible to gank. She has virtually no crowd control. She does have a very powerful ultimate. She's great with tanks, but we're moving out of a tank meta. You know, your heals aren't going to matter that much if, you know, the enemy has executioners and they blow up your AD carry and 3 auto attacks, right? If it's a, you know, they're going against a Twitch or something like that. So, now she's awesome if the enemy team never gets executioners and you play her. But if they do, it feels really, really bad. So, you know, it's up to you. It's up to you if you want to run her. I know some people really love Soraka. I personally just do not have luck with her. It seems like they always get executioners whenever I play her. You know, you can go for like an early Warmogs build if you want. I don't think that's particularly good, but it is on the table if you want to go something like Ruby Sightstone into Warmogs and just run a bunch of health quints or something. You know, that would make her tanky. That would help you out against some of these assassins. But then your heals are going to be really weak. She needs that plus healing shielding. She needs the AP from items to be able to function the way that you want her to function. So, yeah, you'll be unkillable if you run Warmogs and, you know, maybe another health item. Warmogs, Night's Vow, or, you know, something like that to get to the Warmogs threshold. But I think that's a weak build. So I think that she's similar to Sona, and I would just rather play Sona most of the time. Squishy champion, not great against assassins, but virtually unstoppable if it's a team fight and they don't kill you. She just has the option of going Warmogs late game, which does help, but is a little gimmicky. And oftentimes hard to achieve without getting very specific and weird, like runes or items. Like maybe if you take health per level or something. I don't know. She's okay. She's okay. Lulu... Lulu's really good right now. You're seeing her a lot in the pro scene. Now, she doesn't have a heal, though, and that's the thing. She is susceptible to Sona and to Nami in lane because they can just bully her out big time because she doesn't have a heal. She's also very dangerous because she doesn't have that heal, but also because her ranges are really short compared to other enchanters. And this is what's run me away from playing her. So I do like her. I feel like I do well on her. I just don't convert wins. So, you know, she's my 4th most played champion. I'm only 46%. And for the vast majority of these games, I played her 200 times. I had a 4.0 KDA, so I'm not dying a lot with her. I'm only dying 3.6. I'm getting 13 assists. I mean, that's pretty good, right? Over that many games. But, you know, I just think that it's the ranges. It's the ranges. Let me pull it up. It's 650 on her E, which feels really bad for a shield. Like Janna's is 800, for example. And hers is only 650 range. So that means you have to get really close to people, and you're running the risk of getting hit by collateral damage. So like area of effect stuff, you're getting too close to assassins. You just have to position so close to mess with her. Now her ult's really good. That has 900 range, so that's good. The on hit is really good with hyper carries, particularly Kog'Maw and Twitch. Polymorph is very good against assassins. So if you're cautious with her, like, she's good. On paper, she's really good. She has great scaling with her picks. Glitter Lance is good. Whimsy's good. I mean, maybe I just haven't been itemizing her correctly. So maybe, like, I could build her in some circumstances, kind of like the Nami, where you have the option of getting a Zeke's, where you have the option of getting a Knight's Vow. I feel like I always want to go Ardent into Athene's on her. Or Ardent into Redemption. But maybe if you go armor items, if they have a fed assassin, then maybe that would work. But I just feel like I get focused out and blown up a lot with her. She's very slow. You have to use Whimsy to get around. And if you use Whimsy on yourself to try to show up to a fight on time or to try to escape something, then you're not going to have it as polymorph. So, I don't know. She is really strong. She has great wave clear early on. You can just spam your Q on the wave and push him into tower. She has great early game aggression. So, I don't know. I might pick her up and try her again and just run her with Ignite, Thunderlords, just be super aggressive early on. And then if they get a fed assassin, then, you know, maybe you could rotate into something like a Zeke's, and that might be a little bit better. Her base stats are also very, very low. She's one of the weakest champions in the game in terms of base stats. Yeah, she only gets a maximum of 1783 health. Extremely low health later on. And her armor only gets to 82. Magic resist only goes to 38. So yeah, she is just a dream for assassins to pick off and kill. She's very, very easy to kill. So she's all right. I think she's really powerful. Her W does scale really well with Kog'Maw, Twitch, and other on-hit type of champions, particularly Kog'Maw. Lulu Cog is very, very strong. But, you know, she is dangerous as well. And then finally, we've got Tahm Kench here. The Kench, I have unbenched him a couple of times. He did get some love this patch. I talked about it in my patch notes video. He's still primarily a counter pick. Now, he's not great against Kha'Zix either, or Riven, or Fiora. Like, he's basically like a tank version of Morgana to some extent. You pick him to counter crowd control. And you do have some tank breaking capabilities. You are a little bit more durable, so you yourself are not going to fall prey to assassins, but it can be harder to protect other people from them. Mobile ones, at least. But one of his strengths also is his ability to rotate really quickly with Abyssal Voyage. It's on a low cooldown, and that allows you to sort of hop around the map almost like a TF and take people with you. So if you have really good macro and a team that's paying attention, then they can follow you. You can rotate behind people, get some free kills. After you win a team fight, you can rotate over to Baron and start it even faster, or Dragon. You can rotate really quickly and pick off exposed towers. So he does have a lot of power with his rotations. And the thing that they changed about this that's really nice is you no longer have a lockout after Abyssal Voyage. So you used to not be able to W to eat somebody when you showed up after R. I guess just so you couldn't like pop up and eat somebody and run away and troll. But now you can. So you can pop up, eat them, and run away. So that makes your rotations even more impactful. They changed something else too. Oh, this is a huge one. So on Devour, it used to be when you ate somebody, you had to wait 2 seconds before you could spit them out. And this is a major problem sometimes, particularly with Kog'Maw and Twitch, because Kog'Maw, once he turns on his W, he wants to keep auto-attacking because he only has 8 seconds of power, and then he has to wait, you know, an additional 8 seconds before he can do it again. Well, if you devour them for 2 seconds, even if you're saving them from a crowd control, that's knocking out 25% of their power time, right? But now they've reduced it to 1 second. So now you can spit them back out, and he's still going to have 7 seconds of really powerful uptime. Same thing with Twitch. When you turn on Twitch, I believe it only lasts 5 seconds for his ultimate. So if you have to eat him, so let's say that, you know, Twitch turns on his ult, appears, and then Vi ults him, or something like that. If you eat him to save him from Vi, you were still locking him out for 2 seconds so that it was still preventing a lot of his damage. And Morgana obviously doesn't have that lockout, so she could just do Black Shield, and just prevent them from getting crowd controlled, right? And so there would be 0 downtime, so Cog can just keep firing, Twitch can just keep firing, no problem. And that's why Morgana has been a little bit better in this meta, because she's so much better with hyper carries like Twitch and like Cog, because there's no downtime on their attacks. How long does this last? Yeah, it only lasts 5 seconds. But now that it's only 1 second, you can more comfortably pick Tahm Kench with the Kog'Maw, with the Twitch, because they're going to have more uptime. So that's actually a pretty big change. Especially because people aren't running tanks, once again, as much. So even if you're just a little dinky tank like this, you can at least last and help peel for a bit longer against those assassins. So I think these are good quality of life. That's going to help his rotation a lot. This is going to help him particularly with Cog and Twitch. It's pretty good. Now, this isn't going to matter as much. Your acquired taste is going to do more damage. In a really long team fight against tanks, it will help. But it's not going to matter that much in lane, because usually you don't just sit there and auto people in lane. So Kench is good. He's a good counter pick. I might pick him over Morgana these days. Now, he can go Ardent as well. It's not that great, though, because he needs to be tanky. But he does have a 0.7 on his Q. He just doesn't have it anywhere else. So you really probably don't want to go Ardent on Kench. I've tried it. It's awkward. He is very good with Zeke's, though, because if you use your Abyssal Voyage and then cancel it, it only goes on a 10-second cooldown, and that triggers Zeke's. So you just turn it on, cancel it, boom, Zeke's. So you can actually use Zeke's every 45 seconds. Almost no other champion can do that other than Blitzcrank, because no one else has a cooldown that's that low on their ultimate. But you can do it with Tahm Kench. So, and if you go Ruby Sightstone, that would take it down to about like 38 seconds, 37 seconds, 37 seconds. So that knocks off 20% off the cooldown. So, you know, if you go something like Face of the Mountain, Ruby Sightstone, Knight's Vow Locket, you're going to have a lot of protection. Oh, and Zeke's, I guess, Face, Ruby, Zeke's, Vow. That'll give you a lot of protection against these AD assassins, and that'll still allow you to stack on a bunch more damage with your Zeke's to your AD carry. So you're not missing out as much as those Ardent supports as you used to, because Ardent's been nerfed. It doesn't give the plus healing anymore, and now you can give them plus 25% on hit damage. So that's good. It's not as good as Ardent, okay? It's not. Zeke's is not as good, but it's a decent tank alternative where you're still able to give them a lot of damage. And he actually can stay close to people too, so that 400 damage off of the Zeke's sort of swirling passive that goes around you, you actually can stick to people because you're so tanky, and use it. Whereas like Thresh, you don't want to be sticking around that long. But with Kench, you possibly could. So I think he's going to be a lot better here. Okay, and that's about all I want to talk about on this one. I just wanted to spend a lot more time with the top 10 because it did get shuffled up a little bit. You can see the other ones here. I really wouldn't pick these champions most of the time if the top ones are up. The most notable one is probably Tarek in this meta. He is very good. He's good with Ardent. He's good with Knight's Vow. If you win a lot with him, go for it. I personally don't win with him, and you know my beef is he doesn't have a lot of escapes. So if he ever gets caught out, he's gonna die. And he's okay with Ardent. He's good in later team fights, but he doesn't have Initiate. He doesn't have any lane pressure hardly. He does have a heal, but he doesn't have Initiate. He doesn't have lane pressure. And if you ever are in a losing fight, he has no mobility and he's going to die. And he's very short range on all of his stuff. You have to be standing right next to people to heal him unless you put your W on him. The E is a very slender hitbox. You have to be standing next to him. And it requires a lot of team coordination. So to really leverage that ultimate, you have to have people that are actually going to stand there and continue to fight. If they run away or they spread out and don't get triggered by the ultimate, then it's not going to be that good. So he can be good in tightly organized teams and team fights, but and his advantage is he won't get blown up. So maybe he deserves to be a bit higher because I had always traditionally picked Sona over him because she's kind of the premier team fighter with her auras. I think she has a bigger impact than Tarek because she gives, it's a lot easier to give Ardent to everybody. And she has so much healing and shielding. But maybe with Tarek, because he can't get blown up by the Kazakhs, the Rengars, all that stuff, maybe there's a space for him. It's just, I still don't like that mechanic where he has to stay in the fight and auto-attack constantly to lower his cooldowns. It just exposes him to a whole lot of extra collateral damage that other champions just don't have to endure. So, he's still pretty good. I mean, he might deserve to be up here somewhere. I'm not really sure who I'd replace him with, but he's still good. He's viable. If you want a really strong team fighter who's also tanky, and, you know, you don't want to pick Thresh, you don't want to pick Rakan, then you could go Tarek. So he's viable. Zyra's the best AP support. I don't think AP supports are that great right now. The Spell Thieves does help him. It's nice. But, you know, she can get picked off and murdered by all of these AD assassins really well. And if you're not snowballing super hard in your lane, then it's going to be difficult to win. She's also very susceptible to Thresh, Blitz, and Nami. You can play around those champions if you're a really good Zyra player. You can use plants to block hooks. But overall, she just doesn't have enough burst to get through, I don't think, right now. The items are just too expensive, and they nerfed the damage masteries, and they nerfed her directly in terms of her damage several times. So, we'll see. The preseason's going to shake everything else up. We might find the AP supports back again. Electrocute looks like it'd be a pretty good mastery on her, but I'll talk about that a lot more in the preseason. Right now, if you really need AP, if you have 4 ADs on your team, which is totally possible in this meta, then maybe you go Zyra. She's the best AP option, but only in extreme circumstances. I just wouldn't get her that much. If you want early game pressure, I would just play Nami. I think she's the best early game pressure champion. Or Lulu. One of those two. Alistar, just don't do it unless Rakan's banned. He has decent engage, but similar to Tarek, he doesn't have a very good reverse gear. He can get murdered early. One of the strengths of Alistar in pro play is that he can dive level 6 very, very well with his ult. And that's just not going to be expressed a lot in solo queue. People aren't going to coordinate dives that well. And so that wastes a lot of his potential. He's okay. He's just not great with all the best items. So, you know, Thresh murders him. You can flay back the headbutt. You can bait him really easily. Nami can harass him out early. Rakan's just a much better version of him. Janna destroys him. I mean, he's pretty good into like Sona, Soraka, Lulu. They're going to harass you down in lane, but if you really need engage, maybe you can do it later. He's okay. I just think Rakan's better. So if Rakan's banned and you want this type of effect, someone who has a pretty guaranteed like point click engage, he's pretty good. Braum's all right. He's an immobile tank. He can't get Ardent. He can use Zeke's. He's okay. He just gets murdered early game by Nami, by a lot of other champions. He's decent in Nami later because he can block her wave with his shield, so that's pretty good later. He's particularly good against Twitch and Xayah because he blocks Twitch's shots from hitting any other people. So it stops all of the area of effect. So he's great against Twitch, and he's great against Xayah because he stops her feathers from getting to the back line. So if you want to pick him, I would pick him as a counter pick to those 2 AD carries if you're really good with him. But most of the time, you know, if I wanted a tank, I'd probably stick with Thresh, or maybe even Tahm, Kitch, or Tarek. But he does have a very specific niche, countering those 2 AD carries. They are both very popular right now. You're going to give up the early game if you do that, but he's okay. He's okay. Annie, this is something that always gets recommended by LS, Last Shadow, if you don't know him. He's a very famous analyst. Does a ton of damage early. You're going to give up the laning phase, but if you want just guaranteed like point click, roam around, grab Moby boost, and just start blowing up people, you know, she can be a true terror, especially in bronze and silver. Just hit level 6, just rotate, ward up the river, kill the mid laner, kill the jungler, rotate back down, kill your own lane. She's just kind of the master of rotation and blowing people up. Similar to that is Fiddlesticks. You can rotate, fear people. Fiddle does use Ardent Sensor very well. Fiddle might deserve to be a lot higher. He's a good sleeper right now. He's very good against assassins. You know, that 2.5 second or 2.25 second fear on someone like a Jax, Riven, Fiora, Kha'Zix. Very, very powerful. Yasuo. So he kind of crushes assassins really well. He has great push early on with his E. Like I said, he can use Ardent. So he's decent, and he does decent AP damage. So once again, if you have a 4 AD team and you need some AP damage, he's a decent option. I still think Zyra is a little bit better. She has more kill pressure in lane, but if you don't care about the kill pressure, if you just want the crowd control later with the Q, you just really want that fear, then he can be really strong. So, I mean, he could be as high as up into the tier 2. I mean, he's really, really good. So it's debatable. In fact, I'm going to move him up. Now that I'm talking about him, I just played him tonight too. Someone donated to see me play a fiddle game. I'm going to go ahead and move him up. Well, no, I'm not. I'm going to leave it because I've already have the numbers in there and I don't want to redo them. But he's good. He could be much higher. Vel'Koz, good damage, good range. He's very gimmicky. You have to stand still. And he's, you know, people can knock you out of it while you're channeling. And, you know, he gets murdered by anyone that flanks him. He has no escapes. If Kha'Zix creeps up on him, or Rengar, or whomever, he's okay, but I think there are better options. Nautilus, good crowd control. Thresh is just better most of the time right now. So Nautilus is all right. He does have a point-click ult, which is nice for killing things like Twitch or Vayne, or just, you know, other things that go invisible that are hard to lock onto. He's pretty decent, but I just think that Thresh is better. Thresh is just a lot more versatile. Brand's okay. A lot of damage, similar to Zyra. He does have a point-click stun, but he's a huge mana hog, and he really is heavily reliant on hitting your Qs. He has no escapes. No, he's okay. You know, bronze, silver, he can just completely take over a game. He's excellent at team fights. So, Brand, if you win a lot of games with him, play him, but I still think AP supports aren't in a great spot right now, and if I was going to play AP, I'd probably rather play Zyra or Fiddlesticks. So, I think Fiddle probably deserves to be up near the top of tier 3. Okay, almost done. Trundle, good tank breaker. He just requires a lot of coordination with your team. You have to know, like, you have to communicate with people who they should attack. Like, I cursed this person, attack them, you know. But so much of the time, you use your ult on somebody, your team just doesn't attack them, they don't die. He gets bullied out in lane. Itemization's not that great for him right now. He can't use Ardent. He's an okay Zeke's user at best because he doesn't have a lot of crowd control. So he's okay, but he's not that great. Bard and Karma, the final two I'll talk about here. Bard, really strong. He probably deserves to be in tier 3 somewhere. Now that I think about it, you know, he does a lot of early game aggression. He does have a heal. He rotates really well. He has an interesting ultimate, but he doesn't scale that well. He doesn't use Ardent that well. He can use it, but it's not great. He's okay. I mean, if you win a lot with Bard, he's a specialist champion. He's really hard to play correctly. But if you win, he could definitely be viable. He probably deserves to be somewhere in tier 3. Maybe above Annie. There's a lot of execution problems with him. You can mess up the ult. Your team can mess up what to do with the ult. When you rotate, your AD carry can just die because you're not in lane anymore while you're getting your chime. So it requires a lot of macro knowledge of when you can roam, when you can't roam. There's just a lot of potential for execution failure, particularly at the macro level, from both the player and from the player's team. So that's why I have him down lower. So a really good Bard can take over the game, but there's a lot of risk to him. And unlike Thresh, the payoff is not quite as high. It doesn't have quite as much utility. He doesn't have as reliable of engage. Thresh, there's a lot of execution problems as well, because he's a really high skill cap, just like Bard. But I think the payoff's just better with Thresh, and that's why Thresh is much higher. And then Karma, good at poking, doesn't have a heal. I'd just rather play Lulu. If you want early game aggression and much better scaling, just play Lulu. She's just a better version of Karma right now. Maybe Karma will come back in the future, but I don't think that little buff on this patch is enough. Okay, that's going to be it. Thank you very much. Hope you enjoyed this. It's a really interesting patch. Stuff's shaking up. You're getting more of these aggressive supports coming in. If you like, you know, early game aggression, you're really going to like this patch. It's great for Blitz, Thresh, Nami, and then you still have your hard engages like Rakan that could be strong as well. And that's going to be it. Have a good day, and I'll see you next time.